United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres said at the World Economic Forum meeting of world leaders and corporate executives Wednesday that the world is in a sorry state as it faces challenges ranging from climate change to the war in Ukraine. I'm not here to sugarcoat the sorry state of our world. We can't confront problems unless we look them squarely in the eye, and we are looking into the eye of a Category 5 hurricane, Gutierrez told the crowd at the Swiss ski resort of Davos. Gutierrez described the perfect storm now plaguing the planet, including the economic slowdown, a looming recession, global warming, an ecosystem meltdown, and conflict like the war in Ukraine. The Secretary General has long sounded alarms about the deadly climate crisis and the essential threat of nuclear weapons. And his address to the annual World Economic Forum meeting underscored the urgency of the compounded issues that are piling up like cars in a chain reaction crash. Several parts of our planet will be uninhabitable, and for many, it will mean a death sentence, Gutierrez said of the world's rapid warming, deriding big oil as a business model inconsistent with human survival. It would be difficult to solve these very variegated crises, variegated, I think it is, crises even in a peaceful and united world, Gutierrez said, but the world now faces the gravest levels of geopolitical division and distrust in generations. Evidenced not just by the Ukrainian conflict, but in the decoupling of the US and China along the east west divide. Ukraine has been a key focus of the Davos talks, and Gutierrez wasn't optimistic that an end to the war is in sight, predicting that peace will be hard to accomplish in the short term. What's more, the international community is still recovering from the COVID-19 pandemic that strained public health and ravaged many economies. Somehow, after all we have endured, we have not learned the global health lessons of the pandemic. We are nowhere near ready for the pandemics to come, Gutierrez said. Oh, there's a lot to unpack there. This story actually came out about the Hill posted 5 hours ago. I was asleep. It was like what 7, 6 in the morning over here. So, um, everything that was said there, I pretty much agree with. I do want to point out when he talks about the divides, right? There was a time, and we've always had wars throughout history, but when you look at something like the Paris Agreement, right? There was this global treaty having to do with climate change was a big issue for Gutierrez. That only three countries, including the United States, back when Trump was in office, decided to not be part of. And there's been this group of climate deniers who are at the forefront of several countries' governments who basically just will not do anything with regard to actually trying to protect or save the environment around them. And the part where he says it'll be a death sentence is actually really scary because for some people, they can say, oh, you know what, over here it's starting to become very, very warm or just something that I can't live in, the conditions. Okay, I can just go to this other state or this other country. A lot of others, and we did a story about the 63% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck, can't just get up and go. So they will effectively be slowly killed off in their own environments, and that's something that is not being talked about at all. What do you do when these places become uninhabitable? Do you have an outreach program? Do you have some kind of public system to get them out of there? It's really disturbing stuff when you just sit there and think about it. Now, where he mentions the where is it there's so much stuff in here. um I guess we could also talk about where he mentions the wars, because he only mentions the one in Ukraine, but as anyone who's watched here, or this channel I should say, for a while knows that, I mean, where do we even begin? We have the US's war in Iraq, Syria, Somalia, Pakistan, Yemen. Well, we're not at war with Yemen, but we're aiding Saudi Arabia. We pulled out, but we still sell them weapons, so it's like it's dubious. Um, and oh, and Libya as well. I forgot, but there's so many of these conflicts in these different regions that don't get talked about, that are causing hundreds and thousands of people to die, that are wasting millions and billions of dollars, and all these resources can be better spent actually aiding the people of the country that they're coming from. I mean, we've had this discussion before. You can get the U.S. to agree to spend $100 billion on bombing some country that most Americans couldn't even name on a find on a map, but they couldn't spend 50 billion to pay for every student in America to go to college. Like, it's just it's their the priorities are all screwed up, and pretty much all of it is in the it's based around a lot of times some kind of thing they can get. So we talked about he talked about like gas pollution. These big oil companies, they get a bunch of money when stuff is polluted, when oil is sold. They really couldn't care less about the climate because um, as long as their pockets are stuffed, who cares if someone's place is inhabitable? And it's just a combination of people in power not caring about those that are around them and wanting to, I guess, keep perpetuating this really awful system. And a lot of people not really paying attention to what's happening either until it's too late. Um, the one deviation I have is with the pandemic because that's something people have to decide that they're going to be serious about. I mean, there were a whole bunch of COVID restrictions that were passed in the U.S., for example, and you had people who didn't want to, just for different reasons, didn't want to participate in certain things. So, barring that, you also have the fact that we hadn't had anything like it ever before. So, I think it kind of makes sense that we wouldn't be prepared for it. Um, but yeah, this was a really strong address. I hope I can find a copy of it online. I'm sure I will, but I always prefer to read this stuff because it's easier for me to just pause and reflect on the different things that were said. So yeah, I agree with them.